Did President Obama convince Americans, or did he let them down? Well, here to discuss this with me, I have Mark Levine from Radio Inside Scoop. Mark, thanks for joining me again. So, I mean, first, what was your reaction to President Obama's speech? Did he sell you?
Well, I'm not sure. I think, like most Americans, I'm kind of in the middle about this. I want the president to succeed. I want the war in Afghanistan to succeed. I'm worried. Afghanistan is a very primitive country. 80% of the people are illiterate. They live by tribal ways. Can any country conquer Afghanistan? Russia tried. Great Britain tried. I'm not so sure we can do so. At the heart of the issue, I think, is whether the Afghan people will be on board. President Obama seems to get this, but we all know that the government of Hamid Karzai is pretty corrupt. So the question is, how can we get the people of Afghanistan to trust in their own government and believe in a stable future? And that's a difficult task.
I think it is a difficult test, and I mean, in some ways, it almost seems like he's being a little delusional with what he's thinking. Does he really think that this can happen? I mean,
I'm sure he does. I'm sure he believes it. Listen, he did a 3-month review, very, very careful review. You had Vice President Joe Biden arguing, at least by all accounts, to have less troops available. You had the generals on the ground arguing for more troops, 80,000 troops, as one account gives. And he said that he's going to give 34,000 troops and then withdraw them a year later.
How is that going to work?
Well, I think
how
it's a
in
test.
1 year, if we've already been there for 8 years, is he going to get everything done just in the 1 year and start withdrawing those troops? I just don't see how it can be done.
For 8 years, we've had a very small level of troops in Afghanistan. I mean, Afghanistan is 50% larger than Iraq. It has a larger population. It's frankly a lot harder and more difficult to have troops there because it's a very mountainous country, very rural,
geography,
very few roads. And so the fact that we've had so many fewer troops in Afghanistan meant we could never get the job done for the last 8 years. He's revamping the Bush strategy. He's trying to see if the generals are right. And at the end of the day, the goal will be whether or not the Afghan people are on board. And if we can't get them on board, we're not going to win this war.
I want to first play a little bite from Obama's speech last night. Let's take a listen.
Today, after extraordinary costs, we are bringing the Iraq war to an irresponsible end. We will remove our combat brigades from Iraq by the end of next summer, and all of our troops by the end of 2011.
So in that bite, like he was just saying, that he's going to bring everyone home by 2011. So it seems like he's actually...
No, he didn't say that. He said he's going to start withdrawing troops by 2011.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Not end
That's what he's going to say,
troops.
is they're going to start withdrawing them by 2011. But in one hand, it gives us, the feeling that he actually wants to put an end to this war. But at the same time, I just don't see how that's happening, because when he keeps bringing on Pakistan as one of the main objectives. And so that's really the problem, is if we supposedly start withdrawing our troops in Afghanistan, Pakistan is still going to be a big problem. We're not going to send troops there, obviously. So I don't see a victory. I don't see some way to really wrap this up in his speech.
I think you're right, Alona, that Pakistan is the problem. In fact, it's a bigger problem than Afghanistan. I wouldn't say, though, he wouldn't send troops there. I would think that many of our troops in Afghanistan may just stray across the border with the implicit approval of the Pakistani government, not explicit, because that could cause real political problems there. But the real problem is in that border region between Afghanistan and Pakistan. The border is porous, and you may remember that Obama in his campaign said that if he got an actionable threat, he would go into Pakistan. I think the real secret of this is not Afghanistan, but you put your finger on it, Pakistan.
Is now maybe spreading into Pakistan. Okay, I'm going to play another little soundbite from the speech last night.
When I took office, we had just over 32,000 Americans serving in Afghanistan, compared to 160,000 in Iraq at the peak of the war. Commanders in Afghanistan repeatedly asked for support to deal with the reemergence of the Taliban, but these reinforcements did not arrive. And that's why, shortly after taking office, I approved a long-standing request for more troops.
Now, see, here he was putting a little bit of the blame on George Bush, saying that there had been a long-standing request to put more of these troops in Afghanistan. We had been putting too many in Iraq for a long time. Does that mean that when he came into office, he didn't really know what he was doing? He just said, okay, send in more troops. I mean, he didn't really have an idea of what was going to help. That's why I feel like he's still maybe a little unrealistic about it.
To be fair to the president, he did run on putting more troops in Afghanistan. You may remember the first presidential debate with John McCain. He made it very clear that while he would draw down troops in Iraq, he would build them up in Afghanistan.
Actually, is that just because Bush wouldn't?
No, I think it's because America, and even liberals, recognize that this was the good war, if you will. This was a war where we were attacked, where they came unprovoked and murdered 3,000 Americans. And you may recall that the Congress, every single member save one, voted for this war.
Yeah.
Unlike the Iraq war, where American opinion has always been split on that war. So I think the belief was, this is self-defense, this is a just war, this is the war we need to fight. The real question, of course, is whether we can win it. And I actually give the president credit that even though he ran on putting more troops in Afghanistan, he still waited 3 months, he analyzed every option, and I think he chose what he believed to be the least worst option, because there were no good ones.
What is his option here, or what is he really thinking? Are we really going to train up these Afghani forces like some people have said, you know, this is a country where maybe not everybody knows how to read and write, but everyone knows how to shoot a gun.
It's true.
Back in 2001, they went in, got the job done easily because people actually wanted this to happen. There was a will. And now it doesn't seem like the Afghan people want it so much anymore. Is that going to stop us from being able to train an Afghan force? Is that an unrealistic idea?
I think we need to remember why the Afghan people turned to the Taliban originally. Because after the Soviets left, there was a lot of civil war. There was much fighting among warlords. They simply wanted security. They didn't like the Taliban. Most did not approve, for example, of their harsh religious restrictions on women. But they turned to them just to get stability and order. Now that we've had very few troops in Afghanistan for the last 8 years during George Bush's presidency, you find that a lot of people have turned back to the stability of the Taliban. If the Afghan people can get stability without the Taliban, I think they'll give up the Taliban. The question is whether our troops can do it. I think we can. I hope we can, but time will tell.
I hope we can, too, but like I said, it's a complicated situation over there. Mark, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.